China has reinitiated its military drills around the island of Taiwan. After U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit, another U.S. congressional delegation has arrived on the island on Sunday, further upsetting Beijing. A 5-member U.S. congressional delegation is in Taiwan. The delegation visited the Taiwanese parliament today and met with their counterparts. The group also met Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen.
Has the United States finally realized that its strategic muscle flexing is no longer intimidating enough to sway China? Or is this just another shallow attempt to mend its tattered image in the Asia-Pacific? As the U.S. prepares to send one of its more senior officials to China's top military forum, the Xiangshan Forum, it's raising more questions than providing answers. Why now? What's the true intention behind this move, and could this spell either a turning point or a new low in U.S China relations? Could we even see another disaster in the making, similar to past mishaps that further destabilize the region? Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial strategic chess games on the global stage, U.S. military engagement with China. Stick with us, because we're about to uncover the layers of diplomacy, hidden agendas, and regional tensions that are pushing both nations closer to the brink of a dangerous rivalry. Stay with us till the end for the full breakdown. This is going to be one eye-opening analysis. The delegation decision, who's going and why. In a move that's already drawing attention, the United States is sending Michael Chase, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for China, Taiwan, and Mongolia, to attend China's Xiangshan Forum, scheduled from September 12th to 14th. It's no small gesture. Chase's attendance at the forum is not a mere diplomatic courtesy, but a clear signal that Washington is hoping to reignite military communication with Beijing, especially after years of icy standoffs, heightened regional disputes, and increased U.S. deployments across East Asia.
Not only do we work closely with allies around the world and closely control all military developments around us, we also continue to express to the international community Taiwan's determination to maintain the status quo of stability across the Taiwan Strait.
Discussions were held over multiple issues, including U.S.-Taiwan relations, regional security, global supply chains, and other significant issues of mutual interest. China has responded angrily to the congressional delegation's visit.
Their visit at this time is of great significance because the Chinese military exercise is to deter U.S. congressmen from visiting Taiwan. Their visit also proves that China cannot stop politicians from any country to visit Taiwan. And it also conveys an important message that the American people stand with the Taiwanese people.
Chase's participation marks a significant upgrade compared to the lower-ranking official the U.S. sent last year, Xanthi Karas, China Country Director in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense. The choice to send a more senior figure like Chase could hint at America's desperation to keep China talking, despite the enormous friction between them. But is this just Washington grasping at straws? After all, the U.S. continues its aggressive military posture across the region, often poking the dragon in ways that seem more like provocation than diplomacy. China tensions, the South China Sea and Taiwan. Let's be honest, neither side is backing down on their core issues. The U.S. has repeatedly voiced concerns over China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea, accusing China of excessive militarization and territorial overreach. On the flip side, Beijing has been relentless in its criticism of U.S. military deployments, such as the placement of long-range missiles in the Philippines and ongoing U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. These moves by Washington are viewed as direct threats by Beijing, which considers Taiwan a breakaway province that must be reunified by force if necessary. The U.S., of course, continues to treat Taiwan as a quasi-ally, selling weapons and making military promises without openly committing to its defense. During Jake Sullivan's recent visit to China, it became painfully clear that neither side is willing to compromise on these contentious flashpoints. Sullivan, the U.S. national security advisor, came away empty-handed from discussions on the South China Sea, with no new agreements to show. Both sides are dug in, with China labeling U.S. actions as destabilizing, and the U.S. calling out China's opacity and military buildup. The South China Sea remains a boiling point, and Taiwan, well, it's the powder keg that could blow the entire region to smithereens. The Taiwan military engagement, a marriage. Let's not be fooled by surface-level diplomacy. Yes, the forum and Chase's attendance can be seen as an attempt to thaw military ties, but if history is any indication, these talks are often superficial at best. Case in point, the January 2023 military talks in Washington, co-chaired by none other than Chase. Those talks were the first of their kind since 2022, when military engagements between the two nations were suspended. Why? Because of the Nancy Pelosi visit to Taiwan, an event that single-handedly enraged China and escalated tensions to levels not seen in decades. So why should we expect this latest forum to be any different? While Chase is a higher-ranking official compared to last year's U.S. representative, let's not forget that these are the same old players on the same old board, playing the same old game. And with both countries unwilling to compromise, this engagement could merely serve as a public relations move rather than a meaningful step toward resolution.
The Chinese military, meanwhile, says it carried out joint combat readiness patrols and combat drills in the sea and airspace around Taiwan. It cited infringement of its sovereignty as the reason behind the drills. China further claimed that the exercises were a deterrent to the US and Taiwan to stop them playing tricks that undermine peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
I do think that China is trying to sell the emerging world in particular, so Central Asia, but also Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, Latin America, on a different vision of world order, and one which is more compatible with China's interests, trying to persuade these countries that the world that China wants to build will be better than the one that the United States and its partners have presided over for most of the last century. What you saw in Central Asia, a lot of Central Asian countries looking at what happened to Ukraine, another former part of the Soviet Union, and thinking, well, might we be next? And therefore, what are our options? If we want to signal to Russia that we have other friends, who do we go to? And the answer is that you go to China. China, on the other hand, will have seen the Russian war with Ukraine as an opening. Although China is a close ally of Russia and has been tacitly supporting Russia in the war, it also sees an opportunity to build its own influence in these countries that are to some degree more nervous about Russian power and what Vladimir Putin might be up to in his immediate neighborhood.
But China isn't budging. It's important to note that both sides have agreed that leaders from the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and China's Southern Theater Command will engage in talks soon, focusing on China's southern seas. But again, will these discussions bear fruit, or are they just another box-checking exercise signaling diplomacy without any real change? The bigger picture, regional instability. As much as Washington would like to ease tensions with Beijing, its actions in the Asia-Pacific continue to ruffle feathers. From military bases in Japan and South Korea to missile placements in the Philippines, the U.S. is deeply entrenching itself in the region, much to China's dismay. The U.S. continues to strengthen its alliances with countries like Australia, Japan, and India under the guise of maintaining peace and stability. But let's not kid ourselves, this is about power projection and containing China's influence, plain and simple. Meanwhile, China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific has caused alarm not just in Washington, but across Asia as China expands its military presence. The U.S. responds with a growing number of deployments and arms sales, most notably to Taiwan. This tit-for-tat approach isn't resolving the tensions, it's escalating them. In the end, Michael Chase's attendance at the Xiangshan Forum might be a headline grabber, but it's unlikely to change the underlying dynamics of U.S.-China relations. Both countries are still locked in a dangerous dance, and neither is willing to cede ground on critical issues like Taiwan or the South China Sea. This rivalry will only intensify as long as the U.S. continues its aggressive deployments and China remains unyielding in its ambitions. So what's next? Will we see more of the same or an unexpected breakthrough in the coming months? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, this is a showdown that the entire world should pay close attention to. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe.